Welcome to E3 Rehab. I'm Dr. Mark Sertica, physical therapist. Today, I'm going to answer the question, are leg extensions bad for your knees? Understanding this question begins with a brief discussion of anatomy because the knee is actually comprised of two joints, the tibiofemoral joint and patellofemoral joint. The tibiofemoral joint is the connection between your femur and tibia, while the patellofemoral joint is the articulation between your femur and patella, or kneecap, and is the relevant joint for this discussion. If you're wondering about the ACL, or whether or not leg extensions are functional, we actually have 3 videos on the topic, and I'll link them in the description in the order that they should be watched. So let's start by examining a fairly common phrase. Leg extensions are bad because they place too much stress on your knees. We can look at 2 primary research studies to see if that statement is true. In 1993, Steinkamp and colleagues compared the amount of patellofemoral joint stress at 0, 30, 60, and 90 degrees of knee flexion between an isometric leg press and leg extension at comparable loads. The authors found that the stress on the knee was similar between the 2 groups. However, as expected, stress was highest at 90 degrees of knee flexion in the leg press, but highest toward terminal knee extension in the leg extension. The peak patellofemoral joint reaction force, also referred to as the compressive force, was significantly higher for the leg press. In 2014, Powers et al. Conducted one of the most telling studies on the topic. The researchers compared the amount of patellofemoral joint stress between squats, seated leg extensions with a variable resistance via an ankle weight, and seated leg extensions with constant resistance using an isokinetic dynamometer. The authors also did their best to ensure a consistent effort, tempo, and range of motion between the groups to control for as many variables as possible. Similar to the previous study, stress was highest at 90 degrees of knee flexion in the squat, but highest toward terminal knee extension for both leg extension exercises. Additionally, as expected, stress decreased toward 90 degrees of knee flexion when using the ankle weight, but remained fairly consistent throughout the range of motion with the constant resistance of the dynamometer. Overall, the peak stress on the patellofemoral joint was highest for the squat. So based on the research, we can confidently state that leg extensions do not inherently create more stress at the knee than squats or leg presses. In fact, they might actually create less. But we need to ask ourselves another question. Is this physical stress actually bad? Not necessarily. Because if we want to improve our bone density, we stress our bones. If we want to stimulate hypertrophy, we stress our muscles. If we want to improve cardiovascular function, we stress our hearts. So what makes leg extensions different? In a landmark paper in 1996, Dr. Scott Dye introduced the envelope of function, which is a method of representing the functional capacity of the knee and of other joints to accept, transfer, and dissipate loads. I'm going to use myself as an example to illustrate what this means. On the y-axis, we have load, and on the x-axis, we have frequency. Since I train my legs twice per week, I have a certain capacity to withstand various stressors on my knees without having an injury. However, if I have a spike in load that far exceeds my current capacity, such as attempting to squat 400 pounds, I'm going to get injured. But we know that the squat isn't bad. I just did too much, too soon. And this is exactly what happens with regular training. If you take a few months off, your capacity is going to decrease, and your ability to withstand stressors is going to decrease. However, if you train regularly over time, your capacity should increase, and with it, your ability to handle more stressors. So the exact same logic should be applied to leg extensions because every tissue adapts, as evidenced by powerlifters who squat 1,000 pounds or parkour athletes who jump off of buildings. What if you have pain? Once again, it's not necessarily any different than any other exercise. Now, some physical therapists recommend doing half squats or partial leg extensions to minimize the range of motion that's most stressful on the patellofemoral joint if you're in pain, and that is an option, but it's not the only option. You can alter volume, load, tempo, rest times, etc., but having pain with an exercise doesn't make that exercise bad. Leg extensions should not be dichotomized as good or bad. They simply create stress at given tissues that may contribute to beneficial or detrimental adaptations based on the same factors that drive the adaptations for any other exercise, such as intensity, volume, and frequency. If leg extensions don't contribute to your personal goals, you don't have to do them. But if they do contribute to your goals, or you do enjoy them, they should not be feared at all. Now, if you want a detailed biomechanical analysis and explanation of terms used like stress and joint reaction force, I wrote a blog that goes into much more depth that I'll link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave any questions in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out those other 3 videos discussing leg extensions. Peace.